Hey guys, how's it going? Jay from Will's VG Addiction here with a little something different. So, in case you haven't heard, Sega Genesis is hot on the streets right now, and eBay is popping with deals. So I'm all in. I've been keeping my eye out for Sega Genesis lots, and I found a pretty decent one here. You can see on the screen this one was $10.99 plus $9.03 shipping. So we'll round that up to 20 bucks. And let's take a look at what we got in the box. So this listing, I realized after looking at it for this video that this is actually a little bit incorrect, and we got a little bonus in here. So let's take a look. So we've got our console here and our games. First thing I'm going to talk about is this Tasmania. Oh boy, this is in horrible condition. The box anyway. Cart, not so bad. I haven't tested any of this stuff, haven't cleaned it. Everything is dirty and disgusting, hence why I'm wearing the gloves. One thing I did notice when I was looking at this right before starting to record is that when I open the artwork up here, you can see that the artwork is very brittle and falling apart. So that is not going to make it, and that is not going to add to the value of this fine deal that we got here. So Tasmania, all right. Madden 93, nobody cares. The Adventures of Mighty Max. I don't think that I have this one. I may, but I'm not sure. If I don't, I'll be keeping this one for sure. We've got Altered Beast, which is a requisite for any Sega Genesis owner. And then we've got Desert Demolition starring Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Sorry, I can't speak English today. It's got a torn label there, but I don't think I have that one. I will be keeping this one, but we can see that these pins are absolutely disgusting. Hopefully there's no major damage there, but some of these, it looks like maybe moisture damage. I'm assuming because looking at these pins, that one looked the worst there, but maybe this was in a damp area. I don't know. I'll have to take a look at that one for sure. Being that this artwork is in the state that it's in, it would not surprise me if this was like in a damp shed or something like that. And then looking at the pins in there, don't look too bad at first quick glance. So we'll take a look at all that stuff later and do some testing. Maybe not on camera unless there's something out of the ordinary that I want to show. But pretty solid deal. And the Mighty Max here was actually something that wasn't shown in that main photo. I didn't realize, but when you scroll all the way down through all the individual photos, it is listed. So 5 games and a console for 20 bucks shipped. Whew, pretty amazing, I would say. Now let's take a look at the almighty price charting, the holy Bible of video game values. So the Sega Genesis Model 2 here, it says that it's loose, worth $55. I'd say realistically from experience, 35 to 40 bucks max for a loose console. Like if it's loose with no cables and no controller, like 20 bucks. But again, I hear Sega Genesis is popping in the streets. And back when I was selling a couple years ago, you probably couldn't give away a Model 2 really, unless it had a bunch of games and stuff with it. So I don't know. I'm not really deep in the streets when it comes to this stuff, and my knowledge of the prices and the desire for the stuff isn't where it should be as a scumbag reseller. I'm just kind of hoarding stuff right now. So we got Tasmania here, says $11.28. I personally will put that more in the $5 range. Madden Football, worthless. Desert Demolition says 10 bucks. I'd still safely venture more towards the $5 range. Altered Beast, 14 bucks. We can take a look at some of those listings. That's kind of interesting there that that people are paying that much for a loose copy. And you see that some of these are not really accurate. You got one with a case for $23 and it's factored in with the loose prices. So, you know, you really got to take this stuff with a grain of salt because it's not entirely accurate. And then, you know, you factor in shipping and whatnot too. Do you consider that part of the value of the game? If somebody's willing to pay 14 bucks ship for it, or are you going to subtract the shipping there? It's kind of up to your interpretation of it. And the Adventures of Mighty Max, $9. So overall total value of this lot, according to price charting, 105 bucks. We paid 20 bucks for it shipped. I'd say that's a pretty solid deal. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so we've got this here, 50 bucks plus 1802 shipping. Let's round that up to 70 bucks. Sega Genesis Model 2 with 5 games. And I believe all of these I'll go back to the last one. I think that one was untested or for parts. I'm not sure. Yeah, so that one there says untested. This one here was for parts or not working. It's untested, but being sold for parts or not working because they don't want any liability, which is totally fine with me. Let's take a look at this lot here. Again, 70 bucks. So we got our Model 2 down here with a power cord, RF cable, a couple of 3-button controllers there. And then we've got Quackshot, starring Donald Duck. This was actually something I never owned as a kid, but man, back in the early days of the Sega Genesis, this is one of those games that made it just look amazing. And I played it a little bit as an adult, not as impressed as I would have been if I had played it as a kid, but one day I'll put some more time into that. Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist there, not in the greatest condition, but you know, roughly, I think, we'll take a look, but I think that's like a $30 to $35 game. We've got some plastic chipping there, so that's not going to help us as far as value is concerned. We've got the Mean Bean Machine starring Dr. Robotnik in absolutely god-awful condition. The pins on these I don't think look too bad at quick glance. We've got Sonic 2, and then Toe Jam and Earl 2, Panic on Funkotron. So let's take a look at, again, the almighty price charting. All right, as we talked about, Sega Genesis Model 2 says $55 here. I'd say if everything is working and I clean all that stuff up, I think I could probably get about 55 bucks for it with the 2 controllers and the cables and all that. Toe Jam and Earl there, I swore that was a higher dollar game. Previously, when looking at it, I looked through some of the listings and whatnot. It is roughly like a $12 to $15 game loose. Sonic the Hedgehog, probably say that's pretty accurate, $8 or $9 for that. Hyperstone Heist, in the condition that it's in, not the best, probably closer to 30 bucks, I would think. Now, as we look at the value here, at one point, and I do remember this because I had an extra copy that I held on to for like 10 years and finally sold it in like 2021 or 2022. Loose copy, $108 at one point, and then the steady drop off, more than likely because of the Cowabunga Collection release. But I mean, you're still looking at like $40, $45 there for sold listings. And obviously condition is a heavy factor in those prices, but you know, not a bad little game there for the lot. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Now, I didn't look at that, but that really is surprising me that that's close to $20. I'm not really sure why that is not. I can't imagine that's a sought-after game. I really can't, but who knows. Steady increase there. Yeah, I don't know who's paying 20 bucks for this loose, but you can see that some of these look like they have they're including like complete listings in there too, so that's probably why it's a little inflated. And then we got Quackshot at roughly $19. I'd say that's probably closer to the $15 range, or maybe even 12 bucks or so loose. And then the Mean Bean Machine, in the condition that I have mine in, probably closer to $5 if I'm lucky. So not the worst little lot there for $70. But the one I'm excited for is the one that I haven't opened yet. We're gonna do that on camera together. I paid $200 for this lot, and I'm hoping that it is worth it. There's one game in there that's what the kids call a heavy hitter. So let's take a look at it. The finest of packing materials in here. Just a plastic bag, a dirty plastic bag too. Disgusting. All right. So we've got a very nasty, dirty Sega Genesis Model 2. Oh my Lord. You can't really see that in there, but there's a lot of crud and dust and dirt. It looks almost like it's rusted and just in awful, awful condition. Which, you know, I kind of figured from the photos that were in the listing. We'll take a look at those in a little bit, but I don't have the highest of hopes for this thing. It's really disgusting. We'll put that aside. So I'm not going to go in here and stack the games. And look, there's a roach piece. That's fantastic. Let's see if we can't zoom in on that. And that's why I wear gloves every time I open something. That is always fun to see when you're opening a lot of games. Absolutely disgusting. Hopefully this is actually worth it and everything works and is not completely rusted through. So we've got Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Oh my God. What is that? Gross. Gargoyles. Warlock. Oh, can you see it? Can you see it? The reason I bought this lot. Punisher. I've been wanting this game for a hot minute, and that looks pretty nasty in there. I don't know if that's a spider web or what, but gross. It's not in the worst condition. Not bad at all. I want this game complete, but not bad to have it loose. That is like $100 and something game right there. Streets of Rage 2. I did not expect these to be as filthy as they are. I'm going to have to put a lot of time cleaning in this lot here. And I don't want to pull it out and get bug parts if there's more bug parts all over the place. Pack Attack. So let me find a better way of stacking this. Maybe. You know what? I'm just going to take these out. Put them on the desk. It's fine. It'll all get cleaned up at some point anyway. It don't matter. Weapon Lord in awful condition. I will say, as I'm going through these, I'll talk about what I do and I don't have. So, of all of these, I'm not sure. I think I have Gargoyles. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I do not have Punisher. I don't think I have Weapon Lord either, but I'm probably not going to keep this copy in as shit condition as it's in. We've got Golden Axe 2, a classic, an unrated classic. Not in the best condition here, but that's all right. Streets of Rage 3, oh my God, in terrible, terrible condition. I think that's just dirt though. A lot of it's just dirt. Ugh. An absolute classic there. I will not say, it probably is a little underrated. I think it's a great game, and I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid, I've always thought the music on this game was shit, but I've come to appreciate it quite a bit more in the last 5 or so years. Jennifer Capriati Tennis, but who cares? One of my all-time favorites, Revenge of Shinobi. Not in the best condition, of course. Most of these are not in the best condition, so I probably don't have to say that anymore, but that is a shame. Lovely game, though. I absolutely adore this game. Got Eternal Champions, an absolute turkey of a game. Had high expectations for this when it came out, and it disappointed in every way. Just trash. Ghouls and Ghosts. I may or may not have released a video by now where I bought one of these broken and fixed it. The board was in awful condition, and did a repair on that recently, so kind of nice to have what I hope to be a working copy, or one that's in good condition. We got the other one working, so. Anyway, great game, by the way. What can you say about Sonic the Hedgehog? It's Sonic the Hedgehog. Subterranea. I don't really have a whole lot of anything to say about this game. Toy Story. I think graphically impressive when it came out, but just not my cup of tea. Dracula, one that's actually not in awful condition. That's kind of nice. Wonder where this what this game store is. Curious. Pitfall. I don't know. Not a lot to say about that either. Not a game that I played at all as a kid. Don't really have an opinion on that. Williams' Greatest Arcade Hits. A very early example of compilation titles. I don't know. Atari era type stuff. Not my bag. Another Sonic the Hedgehog. Bugs Bunny in Double Trouble. I don't know that I have that one on the Sega Genesis. Ooh, Batman and Robin. That's hot. Very good game. Not something I liked as a kid. Those pins look kind of beat though. Good God. Not something I enjoyed as a kid. Didn't really play it until like the mid 2000s, or I think even later than that. It was like 2015 when I actually started putting a little bit of time into it. It's pretty solid. It's more of a shooter than anything else. We've got Paperboy. I think this is Paperboy 2. Can't tell. There's no label. Could be wrong there. Maybe it's the first one. Either way, not exciting. Sports Talk Baseball, an absolute treasure of a game for its time, I think. Very groundbreaking stuff there with the voice, the speech synthesis. We got Sonic 2 in awful condition. Shouldn't keep saying that, but it is in terrible condition. You've got Vector Man 2. This is like the third lot that I've bought that had a Vector Man 2, and this is in by far the worst cosmetic condition there. Ooh, Death and Return of Superman. That's a heavy hitter. I bought a couple non-working Genesis games, and this is one of them that I had to repair, and it was complete, and got it for a steal as well. So hopefully I'll have that video out sometime before I die. Wimbledon tennis. Don't care. Sorry. Nothing to say about that at all. Shinobi 3, an absolute freaking classic. One of the best games on the Sega Genesis, in my personal opinion. If you haven't played it, stop watching the shitty video and go play it right now. No, don't do that. Play it later. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that. Obviously, this is in shit condition. The game itself, ew, so nasty. I'll have to take all these apart and clean, do a deep clean. But anyway, I was not the biggest fan of Mortal Kombat 3 in general. I like the music. I like the graphics. I didn't like playing it too much. It is what it is. And I think we got one more. We got one more. We've got X-Men. This is a heavily hated on game these days, it seems. But back when this came out, this was revolutionary as far as video games with superheroes, because most superhero games back in those days were god-awful. And this is one of the few that actually had accurate portrayals of the superheroes in the games. So, no, it probably hasn't aged all that great, but man, back in those days, it was an absolute classic. So, not too bad there. And that is all she wrote. So all in all, I think it was listed at 31 games. So let's see, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 31 games, yep. 31 games here at $200. These 3 games probably cover that cost. I mean, to be conservative, if we want to be conservative, I would probably say that these 4 games in total cover that $200 cost, that $200 shipped cost. So let's take a look at the almighty price charting after we look at the listing. All right, so we've got our listing up. See the $199 shipped, free shipping. You can see that, if you look in here, you know what you're getting by looking at these. They're in shit condition. That system looks beat to hell, and there's some pretty good pictures in here. So, they're being pretty honest and pretty open about what's being sold here. And then you look at the description. Sega Genesis console with 31 games, sold as is, condition is unknown, being sold as it will sell fast, or will sell fast. And it did. I sat there and I kind of pondered on it for, I don't know, a good 10 minutes or so before I was like, you know what, you got to get that. You got to get it. So let's look at the almighty price charting. The Bible says $678.03. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Condition is not that great. I'd probably knock at least half off, at least. So, our bigger games there, we got Ghouls and Ghosts, roughly $30. Shinobi 3, roughly $30. Revenge Shinobi, $20. Streets of Rage 3, $56. Death and Return of Superman, $62. You know, a couple other 20-ish dollar games sprinkled in there. Streets of Rage 227. That game, kind of surprised that's as pricey as it is. I mean, not that, you know, it's close to $30 now. Let me take a look at that real quick. I think it's highly regarded as the greatest beat 'em up of all time, or at least on the consoles anyway, which I think is fairly well deserved. I wouldn't call it the greatest, but it's very good. But it's a super common game. And then we got Punisher there for 125 bucks. So like I said, with Punisher at we'll call it 125. Death and Return of Superman at 62. That's 180, and then Streets of Rage 3 brings us over $200. And obviously, it's not all about the money. And I'm talking about money, but it's not all about the money. A lot of these I do have already, but that was just way too good of a deal for me to pass up. What I will do, I'm going to take a look at a couple of these. Let's take a look at like the top 3 or so. So we'll take a look at 3 of the bigger games from the $200 lot, and then take a look at what I would consider to be the better games from the other lots. Let's get rid of some of that glare there if we can. So let's start with Ninja Turtles and see what kind of condition this thing is in on the inside. Not too terribly bad there. It's definitely going to need a cleaning. So I'll do a little bit of that off camera. I'll just get some polish and polish those pins up off camera, and then we'll fire it up. We'll do them all at the same time, but right now we're just kind of taking a look to see what we're working with. This one might not be so lucky. Got some corrosion on the pins. Doesn't look too terribly bad. Should be all right though, I think. It's gonna take a lot of work to get all this crud off there though. All this yuck off of these games. Wow, nasty. Golly, just like the other one. So I was working on another one, and there was a good amount of corrosion right along this line, just like this one here. Hopefully, I don't have to run wires like I did on the other one. But yeah, that's like surface crud. That should come off. I think we'll be okay there. So I'm not gonna waste everybody's time by cleaning this stuff up on camera. Ooh, ugh. That is a spider. An actual dead spider. Hot. Kind of hard to see there. Maybe we'll look at that under the microscope. And then the pins on this one look like absolute shit. So that sucks. And this is a Capcom board, so it's not like I could just swap it out with any other game. But we'll try to get that as cleaned up as possible. Hopefully that works without any problems. But before we do that, actually, you know what, let's just see. So let's put that one aside for the time being, and then we'll take a look at this one. Look at that. Just disgusting. A lot of corrosion on there. Hopefully that's all just surface crud. And one of my favorite repairs that I did on this channel years ago, I had sold one of these back in like 2015, and the buyer sent it back, and it had a cracked board. But when I sent it to the buyer on eBay, it was working perfectly. There was no issues with it. So I think the guy just swapped the board out and sent it back. And I had just stuck it in the box for years until I was able to fix it, because I didn't know how to fix the stuff way back then. So I did the board repair and actually wound up swapping the board with a Lion King board and had it nice and pristine. Sold that on later on. But anyway, just a little story there. So, looks like doo-doo. So, I spent a good hour or so cleaning like 5 games. Wild. Ninja Turtles is not in bad condition in general. I mean, the board anyway. So nothing really to report there. Game works. It's fine. The Punisher. Take a look at the board there. So important to note, I used some distilled Caucasian vinegar here to loosen up some of the crud on these pins, and it didn't do the best job, to be completely honest with you. So I had to do some scraping, a little scratching there. You can see some of that in the light, but for the most part, these boards cleaned up fairly well. So that is the Punisher. That, again, that works. A little disappointed that that one was eaten up as much as it was. The Adventures of Mighty Max. This one was particularly interesting. So it had, I think it was like bug poop or something on there. It was like a lot of little speckles of corrosion on there, and that stuff cleaned up pretty well. The vinegar actually did a really good job of getting that stuff off for the most part. There's a couple of spots that were kind of eaten through though, and when the corrosion and the rust eats through the metal, vinegar is not gonna do a whole lot. It's good for getting the surface crud off, but when it's eating through the metal, you gotta scrape it out. Death and Return of Superman, probably the one that was in the worst condition overall. You'll see there was quite a few spots that I had to scratch out there. I mean, to the naked eye, it looks okay-ish. You know, when you're not looking at it with the glare, it just kind of looks, I don't know, a little scuffed up there. But under the microscope, it looks pretty bad. There's a lot of spots like right on the edge of the pins there where the side of the pin was kind of eaten away, and I had to scratch that up a little bit. On this side here, some of the solder mask was peeling up, so when I went to clean it with alcohol, I could see that the alcohol was making its way underneath the solder mask, so I had to kind of scratch the loose stuff off of there and expose that copper a little bit. I may put something on there to protect that, but there was a spot here and I think a spot on the edge there somewhere. It wasn't too terribly bad, yeah, like on that second pin there. So not too terribly bad. It works. These shells were completely disgusting though. So for the most part, I had to take them to the sink and then scrub them off. It looks like I missed a little bit there, and really like get all this grime and stuff off of there. Yeah, see, that's pretty nasty. Gross. That's not one to come out. I don't know what that is, like adhesive residue or something. I don't know. Anyway, moving along. I didn't put the screws back, obviously, because I wanted to show these. Anyway, this one had all kinds of tape residue on the back. I got as much off as I could. That stuff is kind of hard to get off. So, again, not too terribly bad. And this one, the board there, as the video skips, the board there is not in the greatest condition. Not terrible. I may wind up doing a board swap with a Lion King, but I don't think it's really that necessary. I mean, if the label was in really, really good shape, I'd be concerned about it, but that one wasn't too great either. But you know, it's adequate, I suppose. So again, everything works so far. It's just gonna be a lot of work cleaning that stuff up. But I'm pretty happy with that anyway, regardless. For 200 bucks, I'll take it. And the only game out of this lot actually wound up, I do have this for the Genesis. So the only one that I'm actually going to keep out of this group here is this Punisher. And this I don't think is going to be my forever copy. I mean, I'll keep it until I actually come across a complete copy for a somewhat reasonable price. But if that doesn't happen, I guess this will be mine forever. So anyway, I appreciate folks watching. It's a little different from what I've been doing lately, but this channel started out as a pickup video channel and somehow morphed into a repair channel. So more stuff coming. I actually got 2 other really solid lots. There was another really great Genesis lot that I got with some bangers, as the kids like to say. And there was also a Japanese PlayStation lot, which was fucking phenomenal for the price that I got it at. Maybe I'll show that in the near future. But for now, I'm gonna get myself to bed because it's 1:15 a.m. and I'm tired. So catch you on the next one.